Alright, so we are going to begin this screencast with German invasions. German invasions were categorized as Blitzkrieg, and I think I have the spelling on the slide here. Okay, they were categorized as Blitzkrieg, and Blitzkrieg literally means lightning warfare. It was named this because German war strategy involved surprise attacks, lightning fast advances into enemy territory, so in a sense it would happen as fast as lightning. It'd be over before it began. What would usually happen is that you would have a combination of airstrikes that would destroy enemy forces on the ground, as well as tanks, and this allowed a large number of troops to occupy the area. Germany used Blitzkrieg to take Poland, as well as Norway, Denmark, and several other smaller countries. And he did this in a relatively short amount of time. Then Hitler's going to turn his attention to a bigger fish, and that is going to be France. So shifting now to the invasion of France. France had set up a line of defense to protect themselves against the invading Germans. If you recall, Germany and France do border. Now, they didn't extend their defense line through the Belgian region because there were many trees. There was a large forest there, so they thought this would make it too difficult for Germany to get through. But the Germans were able to attack France after taking Belgium. So eventually, down the line, the Germans will make it all the way to Paris. You can kind of see in the map image, Paris is definitely western from the German line, but it's central western, so it's not that far. And Paris, being the capital, means that Germany had occupied and taken over Paris. And taken over all of France. Sorry. So Germany now has control of all of France. On a side note, there is one portion of France at this time that was allowed to remain under the control of the French, and that is Vichy France. But you do not have to know that. And this only happened because the leader agreed to work cooperatively with Hitler, the leader of this little town. This little region, really. Okay, moving on to the invasion of Great Britain, which for Germany was known as Operation Sea Lion. I have no idea what the code names are stem from, but I think it's pretty funny. Operation Sea Lion. Okay. The German Air Force, which is the second bullet on here, known as the Luftwaffe. You'll have to spell that one according to the PowerPoint. So Luftwaffe is, I think, how you say it, though. The German Air Force, also known as the Luftwaffe, was sent to battle the British Royal Air Force, which is called the RAF, the RAF, in 1940. Every night for 2 months, the Luftwaffe pounded London with bombs. But the RAF, the Royal Air Force, the RAF, were able to fight back using a newly developed device known as radar. So Hitler, within those 2 months, really wasn't able to get anywhere, so he calls off this invasion. So it's kind of the first time he is unsuccessful, and he turns his attention east to the Soviet Union. This is just image showing you from different areas that the Luftwaffe would be sent over to bomb Great Britain. And we'll try to listen to Churchill's speeches in class. He replaced Chamberlain eventually as the Prime Minister, and he gives some pretty powerful speeches in reference to London's being able to stand up to the German Luftwaffe. Okay. The invasion of the U.S.S.R, or the Soviet Union, was known as Operation Barbarossa. Hitler did have a non-aggression pact with Stalin, but he violates that. So he moves east into Soviet territory. When Hitler invades the Soviet Union, the Soviets immediately ally themselves with Britain and France. The German army was fairly successful in the beginning of their invasion, but they were then faced with a bigger challenge in the city of Stalingrad. And you can see that on the map, I think, unless it's cut off. The Battle of Stalingrad lasted for 2 years. So it's actually still going to be going on when America finally gets involved in the war, which we'll talk about next. But it lasted for 2 years. And the Russian winter really affected the German soldiers. Germany would eventually have to retreat. And so this battle is considered a significant turning point because Hitler is beginning to kind of lose some of these battles that he's, these big battles that he's going for. And the German army will maintain some control over certain Soviet areas in western U.S.S.R, but they were not able to successfully move far east like they had intended to. I'd have Stalingrad. Okay. The war in North Africa. And we will discuss more about this North African campaign when the U.S. gets involved in the war, but I'll kind of introduce it now. The North African campaign started in June of 1940 when Italy declared war on Britain and France. Italy had signed the tripartite pact, and I have that spelling on the slide. Italy had signed the tripartite pact with Germany and Japan in September of this year. So this officially created the Axis powers. And kind of a side note here, okay, Japan comes into this because Germany felt that if they could secure Japan as an alliance, that this would prevent the U.S. from entering the war, because then it would have to be fought on both fronts. They knew that Japan and the United States would eventually have problems, and we'll talk about that. So when this tripartite pact is made and we have the Axis powers officially created and Italy is part of that group, the Allies wanted to launch an invasion of Italy. And this is a country that Winston Churchill called the soft underbelly of Europe. And that's kind of a dig, as in saying, you know, that's their vulnerable, that's Europe's vulnerable angle. You know, it's not tough, it's easily targeted and easily defeated. Now, the easiest way for the Allies to attack Italy is by establishing bases in North Africa, where the Allies could launch attacks over the Mediterranean Sea. If you kind of look at the map on the screen, you know, Northern Africa really does sit underneath Southern Europe, and Italy in particular. So it would be very possible for, if they use some of their colonial nations that they have in Northern Africa to kind of set up bases, then they could attack from the south by coming north. And we'll talk more about this campaign when America gets involved, and we're going to pick up tomorrow with America entering the war because of a very catastrophic event. So y'all listen to this twice if you need to, write down questions, make sure you read over your notes tonight, and y'all have a good night.